Ladies and gentlemen, this is TVP World. You're watching another edition of Break the Fake, where we debunk fake news and combat false narratives. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and let's get rolling. Russia is now becoming the brooding ex-boyfriend of Europe who just can't take a hint. No matter how many times the continent swipe left, the Kremlin still think it owns the place. And now, Russian state TV's favorite propaganda mouthpiece, Vladimir Solovyov, is back with another fever dream. According to Solovyov, Europe is within Russia's rightful sphere of influence. He declares it like a mobster claiming a neighborhood. And if any country dares to disagree, well, he has a threat. The Russian soldier is coming. Ooh, scary. He says that this time, unlike the Soviet era, Russia won't leave. That's right, Moscow is promising permanent occupation, because that strategy worked so well in Afghanistan, Chechnya, and oh yeah, Ukraine.
Если немцы и французы считают, что эта война будет конвенциальной с ними, они вообще не понимают нашей доктрины. Да мы даже валандаться с ними не будем. Просто стереть с лица земли. И если они на полном серьезе говорят, нет, как можно, вот, слушай, первый раз, что ли? Уж то-что, а Европа должна была бы уже привыкнуть к тому, что за их каждую глупость рано или поздно сапог русского солдата по брусчаточке так эхо поднимает. Просто в этот раз не будет повторено ошибок советского времени. Уже не уйдем.
Да.
Но Европа не способна самостоятельно справиться с родовой болезнью нацизма. Значит, будут стоять врачи, которые будут регулярно и вовремя проводить профилактические мероприятия.
And let's not forget Solovyov's most deranged talking point. He claims Europe is struggling with a familiar disease of Nazism and needs Russia to cleanse it. Yes, folks, the same Russia that bombs civilians, kidnaps children, and celebrates Stalin cares so much about fascism. But let's pause for a second and go back to the part where he threatened Europe with the unstoppable might of the Russian soldier. Pretty tough words. Let's check in on how these elite warriors are doing, shall we?
Хочу поделиться криком души и познакомить вас с Юлием. Приобрели мы этого ослика в крике отчаяния. Техники, когда нет совсем. От слова абсолютно. А подвоз надо делать. У нас большое плечо подвоза, 20 километров. Ребята идут. Физически это невозможно, и не оставалось других вариантов. 40 тысяч рублей и осел в студии. Так вот.
Yes, the fearsome cavalry of the 21st century. I personally wouldn't bank on threatening all of Europe with an army that can't even afford trucks, but you do you. Solovyov, buddy, if this is your idea of an empire, you might want to focus less on conquering Europe and more on conquering the concept of competence. Now, Russian propaganda is back at it again, spinning wild tales of American biolabs, this time in Kazakhstan, which, weirdly enough, is where a lot of conspiracy theories seems to be focusing on recently. So, what's the latest lunacy? Well, Russian media, led by Eurasia Daily, is pushing the claim that the Pentagon is running some kind of top secret nefarious pathogen research program in Kazakhstan. The accusation? That American supervised labs are working on particularly dangerous infectious disease. Sounds terrifying, right? Except there's no actual evidence. None. Nada. Zilch. Now, let's set the record straight. There is a lab in Kazakhstan called the Central Reference Laboratory. But here's what the Russian reports conveniently left out. This lab was built with US funding under a program designed to secure and dismantle Soviet-era weapons of mass destruction. And guess who runs this lab today? Not the Pentagon. Kazakhstan took full control of the lab way back in 2017, and its operations are completely funded by the Kazakh government. And US involvement? Limited to biosafety training and equipment maintenance. That's it. No Frankenstein virus, no Pentagon-controlled plague factories. Boring, I know. Of course, this isn't the first time Moscow has trotted out this nonsense. Russia and China have long been tag-teaming the US bioweapon lab conspiracy theory, using it to stir up anti-American sentiment in Central Asia and beyond. In 2023, China's Global Times even claimed the United States was secretly building military biofacilities in the region. Again, zero proof. But again, who needs evidence when you've got the Russian state media machine? Once Eurasia Daily puts it out there, the story spread like wildfire, ricocheting across multiple Russian outlets and the ever-reliable Telegram disinfo channels. The goal? To whip up paranoia among the people of Kazakhstan and paint the US as some kind of bioterror boogeyman. Now, let's turn our attention back to Vladimir Putin, the greatest champion of democracy, just not in his own country. In a stunning admission that surprised absolutely nobody, he's now openly confessing his plan to install a puppet government in Ukraine. Because why bother hiding it anymore? The man who spent decades gaslighting the world about his non-involvement is now casually explaining how he'll pick Ukraine's next leader as if he's selecting a new governor for some forgotten Russian province.
In the current situation, oddly enough, to be honest, we were interested in him sitting there, and further corrupting the regime with which we are in an armed conflict. But from the point of view of the interests of strengthening Ukrainian statehood, here, of course, it is necessary to act, apparently, energetically and in a completely different direction, to bring to power people who will enjoy the trust of the people of Ukraine.
And of course, Putin also claims that the Ukrainian people will trust his hand-picked government, which is fascinating considering that every time Russia liberates a Ukrainian city, the locals either flee in terror or end up in filtration camps. But sure, let's pretend that the average Ukrainian is just waiting for Moscow to send over another batch of corrupt pro-Kremlin yes-men to restore order. And then there's the Trump connection. Putin, in his infinite wisdom, brags that this little project of his is a part of some grand deal with the US president, because nothing says America first, quite like helping a foreign dictator dismantle a democratic nation. Now, if this is what making deals look like, then congratulations, we've officially entered an era where Washington and Moscow negotiate the fate of entire countries like it's a real estate transaction. So, there you have it, Putin, the master strategist, finally saying the quiet part out loud. Ukraine isn't fighting a war against Russia, it's fighting a war to exist at all. And if Moscow gets its way, Ukraine's next leader won't be chosen by its own people, but by a war criminal in the Kremlin. And the Kremlin has once again demonstrated its legendary generosity. It has graciously accepted Serbian President Aleksandar Vucic's so-called apology, because nothing says sovereign nation quite like begging forgiveness from Moscow for a technical error, which in this case means accidentally supporting a UN resolution that dares to call Russia full-scale invasion of Ukraine what it actually is. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, ever the picture of magnanimity, assured the world that Vucic's rapid reaction was quite impressive. Yeah, nothing warms the cold iron heart of Moscow more than watching a supposedly independent leader scramble to explain himself. Of course, Serbian media reports tell a slightly different story. Vucic apologized not to Putin, but to the Serbian people. Which, let's be honest, is even funnier. Imagine a dilemma. Accidentally supporting a basic principle of international law, then realizing too late that Moscow might frown upon such a misstep. What's a good pro-Putin leader to do? Well, in Vucic's case, issue a vague apology, take full responsibility, and hope the Kremlin doesn't cut off the gas. So, crisis averted, for now. Serbia remains a Kremlin cheerleader, and Moscow gets to bask in yet another display of submission. It's a win-win, really. At least until the next technical error requires another round of groveling. And with that, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.